Dawn, I'm so glad to have you here. I'm so glad to have met you a few weeks ago, I guess it was, at the Global Talent Conference. And I thought your story was so inspiring. So I wanted to have you as a guest on my podcast, because I think that your story needs to be told. And I think a lot of people in this world need to hear stories of resilience, of determination. And you're a great example for many young people these days, especially women of color. So it's Women's History Month, and so I'm glad to have you as my guest for this Women's History Month. And I want you to tell your story that you basically presented at the Global Talent Conference. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was such a nice conference. I really learned a lot from just the speakers as well as just like interacting with everyone there.
Yeah.
A little bit about myself. Like I mentioned before, I was born in Ghana, but then my family and we came into Edmonton, Alberta. That's where we decided to locate when we moved to Canada. And I just I had a childhood like no other. I'm sure many of us have unique stories and background, and it makes us who we are.
Yeah.
For myself, I ended up losing my biological mom at the age of 6, and shortly after, my biological dad. And I was adopted into a new environment. And for a kid that age, you know, it's it's important to keep things consistent and
Yes.
have kind of like a routine going. And when your routine is disrupted, it can cause a whole lot of other things you have to deal with along the lines.
That's right.
And just learning how to maneuver that was really something that grew me into the person that I am today.
Mhm.
And the biggest thing that helped me was sports as well as family and learning about the different cultures and the beauty of being unique. And I think there's something to be said about each of us having our own uniqueness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell me a little bit, because I'm in the world of foster caregiving. So I've experienced for myself, children coming into care, not knowing their identity. So I want you to speak a little bit about that and how that shaped you, as an adult now.
Yeah, I haven't experienced the foster care system myself. I had the privilege of being adopted by my brother and his wife,
Yeah.
who I call my mom. So
Aw.
it's it's definitely different for
Yeah.
sure because I'm Black originally, and my mom who raised me is a Filipino
Yeah.
or Filipina, and
Yeah.
just learning new cultures and trying to figure out who I am within that culture while also
Yeah.
embracing the challenges and being able to freely speak about those challenges was something that I found.
Wow.
And I feel like a lot of kids being adopted, or whether they're in the foster care system or just lost a parent,
Yeah.
that sense of who am I gets lost, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
because it's now you're trying to figure out who you are in a world that you don't necessarily know if you belong, because
Yes.
you see an example of a perfect family, like that longing for a perfect family. I know for myself, I secretly maybe was in search of that uh, perfect family, mom, dad, siblings all look alike. And I didn't have that.
Yeah.
And I had a family that was perfect with our imperfections. And I think
Yes.
that's something that was so beautiful is that security, knowing that at the end of the day, you will be okay. At the end of the
Mhm.
day, there is somebody who loves you. And that search and acceptance of that is hard because I know although I was experiencing love, I didn't feel like I deserved love. Or, when things are going great, you feel
Right.
like, oh, I'm waiting for the train wreck to come, like when will it happen? And it's that living in that fear of when will it happen?
Mm.
What's going to happen next? Is this the
Yeah.
day that X, Y, and Z is going to change my life?
Mhm.
And I think just being adopted into another minority family and just learning the different cultures and embracing my own and slowly just being okay that I don't need to worry about what comes next,
Yeah.
like this is permanent. This family's permanent.
Yeah.
I'm going to being a place that loves me and fosters me and want
Oh,
to see me grow. But I will say, like, it is hard to accept that. And even
mhm.
till this day, I'm still working on a few things that will help me get um, more equipped to help others and
Oh,
just like my journey and want to see. Because at the end, I just want everyone to know that there's a place for them. It might not seem like this ideal picture that they have in their head, but
yeah.
as we get older, we get to create that ideal picture.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful. I ended up actually talking to your sister at the end of the
Hmm.
conference. Wow, she is so proud of you. And she
Yeah.
told me a little bit about the days and weeks after your mother passed away, and oh, it just touched my heart. But just to see who you are now is truly
Hmm.
amazing. And I remember at your speech, um, the amount of work you're putting into yourself, like being a student and the part-time work and all that. Please go into what you're doing now and how like your past has led you to where you are.
Yeah, I would say for myself, having sport as my foundation and just like the amazing people I've met in sport and the opportunities I've got out of high school, I didn't know what was next. I feel like a lot of students graduating, they have a plan. It's like, oh, they plan this out. This is what I'm supposed to do. And then it doesn't happen,
Mm.
and it doesn't happen that causes a lot of people to feel that anxiety or stress or fear of the future or the unknown. And
Mhm.
maybe it could feel like a train wreck for some people.
Yeah, yeah.
For mine was going into my first year university, not playing any sports, and doing full time school. No sports, no nothing, no extracurricular. I was just a student, and
Mm.
to be completely honest with you, I did not like it. It did not sit well because I felt like I was made for something more,
Oh,
and I couldn't do that at the point that where at the place where I was at.
yeah.
And so I found a recruitment camp. My One of my basketball coaches helped me out and
Mhm.
said, "Hey, you might be good for this sport, bobsleigh." And I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." I'm like, but I don't know. I just had that feeling like, okay, I might not know what's over there, but I also don't know what's over here. So
Mm.
if anything happens and the worst I get told is no, at
Okay.
least I tried. Yeah, but I was not told no. And I ended up coming and getting accepted and moving down to Calgary and thrown into this completely new realm of athletics, a level that I have never reached before. And now I'm this young athlete. I was literally the youngest on my team
Oh,
and just figuring it out and having to mature in the sport and around my peers who have had more experience in the realm of, I would say, elite athleticism.
yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Holy, yeah, and go into the training. Like, is that very different from basketball? You said you played basketball, you love basketball, but then you were put into this world of bobsledding. What was the difference between the two, and how was the feeling? How did you feel between, like, okay, do I love basketball? But once you were in bobsledding, did you love bobsledding just as much?
I would say growing up, I played multitude of sports. So I did basketball, rugby, track and field, Olympic weightlifting, and ultimate frisbee just for fun.
Yeah.
And honestly, all of those had qualities that prepared me, even though I might not have known it, for the sport of bobsleigh.
Wow.
I went on my first ride down the hill and I was terrified. Like I already didn't like roller coasters and you couldn't take me off of the frame of the sled. That's how like shook I was. So I didn't even know like if I wanted to continue, but my pilot at the time said, "Ready to go again?" And I was just like, yeah, 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 of course. Yeah, sure, I'll go again because it's that dynamic of a team.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that dynamic of a team, which
Mhm.
is like I'm literally her support system. We're
Wow.
literally going down this track together.
Yeah.
So if I don't get in, it changes a lot of things, you know?
Right,
And I think
right.
just having that environment of teamwork and learning from different people what it means to be a team, even what it means to be a family, and what that dynamic looks like, really prepared me for the whirlwind of the sport bobsleigh. Yeah.
Wow, that's really amazing. So once you got into the training, you started obviously to qualify for the Olympics. You obviously had to do some, global competitions, right? Before you
Mm-hmm.
you qualified. And how did that feel, just competing before the Olympics in those competitions?
I would say it took a lot of work getting there and a lot of self confidence building that up,
Hmm.
because as oh my gosh, sorry,
That's okay.
as the youngest I was also quite light, so I really had
Oh,
to put on extra weight and
oh, I
mass
didn't know
to,
that. Oh,
yeah, to just compete. So,
really?
and once I started to do that, that sense of identity, because when I came in, I didn't look like the typical bobsledder.
Okay.
I looked like this tiny girl. Like, where did you guys get this girl
Yeah.
from? And so I really had to, like, okay, like maybe this is what they're saying, that I
Yeah.
don't belong, I don't fit in, I'm not suited for this sport. But it's like something is telling me I'm supposed to do this sport, this journey, and I'm going to show it not just to them, but to myself,
Hmm.
that it is possible. And I worked really hard, had a lot of crashes and a lot of just learning how to believe in myself and what I'm called to do, and, my talents and the skills and everything that I've learned in life has gotten me this far. So clearly it's for a reason.
Exactly.
And yeah, and just being around high competitive athletes was like, oh my, like I walked in and I was just like, okay, like I'm getting there, but I am not here yet. And it was
Wow.
that experience of just like, I get to learn everything from professionals. I get to say that I don't know what I'm doing. And they tell me it's okay. We can teach you, we can guide you, we can help you learn the ropes. And I think that's so important, that as well as we might not have all the answers, but we shouldn't be afraid to admit that we don't have all the answers. Because, like, if you're in the classroom and you're waiting for the teacher to maybe get to the question, but you haven't asked it, and you're looking around and thinking, oh, maybe this person will have the same question as I, but they don't.
Hmm.
And so now you're left unanswered. But if you raise up your hand as shaky as mine was coming up, and you
Wow.
ask those questions, you get the answers that you're looking for,
Yeah.
or maybe an answer that'll point you in the right direction.
Right. So you're
Yeah.
telling me through this experience is like, no matter what, like you got that fear there, but you always remain true to who you are. So even if you
Mm-hmm.
were scared, you still showed up,
No,
right?
I was terrified. Most times, yeah.
That speaks volumes for our audience, and myself included. That's very inspiring because I have that imposter syndrome too, where I'm like, I'm not good enough for my role.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not good enough for this, this work that I'm doing. Um, I'm still showing up because like I have this feeling, this calling that you're talking
Yeah.
about. And then do you find that people are starting to show up that are supposed to guide you and support you in your purpose? Is that what
A
happened to
hundred
you through all
percent.
this?
100%. A lot of people, I didn't understand a lot of the things that were happening. I'm like, oh, something is working out for my good. The more I got in tune with that, and the more I learned about who I was and what that was, because I think with that loss of family, initial family, it's you're kind of doing life alone. Like, yes, you have support systems, but you're still like, I don't really know who's there for me. And
Mm.
I'm a Christian. So at the end of the day, like, I knew that he was guiding me. He
Yeah.
was
Oh.
the father that I maybe didn't have in person, but he never left me. And sometimes that's so hard to put our trust in something unseen.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to taking that leap of faith to something
Yeah.
that you might be good at, you
Yeah.
might fail, but you won't know unless you try. So really taking that leap and trusting, okay, I've gotten this far. how much further can I go? You know,
Hmm.
why have I took these steps? Why have these people shown up for me? What am I actually supposed to do? Maybe that involves you taking a step back, watching a movie, writing, journaling, trying to figure out what it is that you really want to do. But I think like it's worth giving it a shot. Even if it's rejection, it's still worth giving it a
Yeah.
shot.
Now let's talk
Yeah.
about that rejection as being part of that, like the failures, I guess you can say. So
Hmm.
what can you talk about, especially in your journey as an Olympian, how these, these negative challenges or these failures have helped you into your path of success? Like what have they taught you?
I would say the biggest thing that they've taught me is only I can say no. You know, like you are, it's important to be your biggest cheerleaders because there will be a lot of outside noises trying
Mm,
to dim your shine. Like what I mentioned in the speech that I gave um, is that sometimes people are not afraid of how high you'll go. They're more so afraid of their positioning when you do reach those levels. Especially if you're working, it's like, okay, I can climb the ladder,
yeah,
climb,
yeah,
but only one person gets a spot. So it's kind of
mm,
like, okay, who really wants the spot?
yeah,
And it's hard because when you build community and especially in sports,
mm-hmm,
that those are your family. Those are your
yeah,
family members. You gain trust, you gain respect, you have fun, you guys laugh and cry together. But those are the people who actually care for you, want to see you succeed, and vice versa. So it's like you're always learning more about yourself as you're interacting with everyone and being like, okay, like if they can do it, I can do it too. And I think that's the beauty of sports is that we can literally look at other people being great and saying,
mm,
okay, where did they start from?
yeah,
Okay, they started from here. That means I can get there. If they
yes.
started from there, I can get there. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. Holy. I think about myself, in my experience, I wanted to go train and become a, Olympic figure skater. Obviously that
Hmm.
I took a different path for many reasons, but um what can you speak to on, like, and I've seen so many of the not even just Olympic skaters, but world figure skaters who've only been Olympians, who, for example, it's kind of like the Oscars. People think, oh, this person's going to win, and they end up not getting the Olympic medal or whatnot. Can you speak to how, like, what would be the difference between, okay, you got the gold medal, now what, as opposed to, maybe you didn't get the Olympic silver or bronze. You were still an Olympian. Does it really
Hmm.
matter? You know what I mean? Does it matter that you didn't get any of those medals? And what is the future for people who who think that that it shouldn't matter, right? Like, what, you know where I'm going with this is, like,
Yeah.
sometimes people hold dearly to that title of Olympic gold medalist, Olympic silver medalist, Olympic bronze medalist. What's wrong with just being the Olympian? People strive for that top, but I
Hmm.
think there's more to it than that, right?
Yeah. No, exactly what you mean. Like even just the title of Olympian, when I got it, it was like what's I'm not trying to downplay anything, but it's
Yeah,
just like who was I 10 seconds ago and who was I now? Like why just because now there's a title attached to that it should change, you know? I think like a lot of times people only see the end goal and they don't see like the journey that got you there. So as happy as I am that I worked so hard to climb that
mm,
ladder and just figure out who I am in this sport, at
yeah,
the end of the day, I want people to look at the journey. Like
right,
that's something I'm so proud of. And being called an Olympian,
yeah.
when I hear it, it that imposter syndrome comes back.
Oh, really?
Not
Does
going to lie, yeah.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's just like it's thinking more so not that identity you are there, but the journey that got you to that
Yeah.
identity or that OLY. So
Yeah.
I think like it's so important that as much as it's amazing, I haven't experienced it yet to win a gold, silver, bronze medal at the Olympics. It's also amazing that you've even got to that level because you
Right?
went above and beyond. You put your body through
Yeah.
so much. You put your mental health through so much. You put
Mm,
your financial stability through so
yeah.
much. And it's like you sacrifice so much. And at the end, your hard work paid off. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, and if that's all that happened, that's still
Mm.
success. And I think it's
Yes.
really just redefining that success
Right.
in any field. It doesn't matter if maybe you became a nurse compared to somebody who became a doctor. Maybe that person's success was that doctorate and
Yeah.
yours was just being a nurse. So it's just like having different levels of success and what that
Right.
means to you
Yeah.
is the most important because I feel like when we're chasing other people's value of success,
Hmm.
we can kind of have this downward comparison
Yeah.
that negatively affects our just like mental health and our self-esteem and where we think we are and where we should be.
Yeah.
Like I think this critical point in our lives of whether it's maybe junior high to high school or early 20s to mid 20s to late 20s to 30s, you know, it's just
Mm.
like if you're constantly letting what other people value as success, you will never be happy. I'm sorry, but like as hard as um or as the work that I've done to get to this point, there was roads, ups and downs of
Mhm.
that. I'm not at the point where I want to be, but it's just like, okay, was that really where you wanted to be or where you kind of were told you should be?
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
that's amazing. And by the way, you know, I'm honored to have you, an Olympian, be a guest on my podcast, you
Thank you.
know. So, let's talk about where, I mean, you spoke about what you're doing now, which is truly, I don't know how you have the time, honestly. Um,
Yeah.
but talk about what you're doing today, please. Like, wow, spectacular.
Well, I'm currently working on graduating from the University of Calgary and while trying a new sport, track and field,
Wow.
as well as just like balancing part time as a correctional peace officer and
Wow.
learning how to speak in front of crowds because I like these types of conversations one on one, but as
Yeah.
soon as you put me in front of a crowd, I'm like, like I'm so still that I will not move. But
Oh.
it's nice that where I started and
Mhm.
that little girl who lost her parents, I don't know, like I think like at the end of the day, my goal was just to make her proud. You
Oh,
know, say, hey, like we turned out great.
oh my
And
God,
I
you
think
certainly
like,
did. Oh.
yeah, I think at the time it might not have seemed that way. Cause if you met me when I was that little girl, I was quiet, like you couldn't even get a single word out of me. I'm
Yeah.
still quite quiet, but now I have a voice, you know, I have that confidence, I have that self-belief that we can do this. And at the end of the day, I want to just work to continue making her proud and helping anyone along the way who have maybe experienced similar things, whether it's loss of a parent, whether it's coming back into university as a more mature um, adult and just maneuvering the realm of sports and also just learning how to love themselves because I think
Mhm.
it's so important to not be so harsh. I think being harsh, there's a certain level to when that harshness can actually turn negative. So
Yeah.
I think just like finding that balance of okay, um, competitiveness, drive, ambition, but also like self compassion, love, downtime. Like I'm a big napper. If anyone knows anything about me, I schedule my naps. Like you
Wow.
will not reach me because I find importance in
Yeah.
being able to recharge so that I can give my 100% to someone else, you
Yeah, your
know?
self-care
Yeah.
for sure. Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. By the way, you're like, to me, I loved your speech. And here's why. it was authentic. You
Hmm.
were who you were at any given second moment of that speech. It was truly amazing. Like I would prefer people like you to be speaking in front of, people like me. I don't want
Hmm.
people to like, because I find some speakers are like, it's almost like they're they're possessing us, they're like manipulating us through their speech. But you were just, you were like compassionate, you were kind in your words, you were like really trying to inspire us, even though you maybe thought that you didn't. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It was
shaking in my
really,
boots.
it was so beautiful. And it reminded me of, I don't know if you know who Simon Sinek is. He's kind of like a thought leader himself. He's done TEDx talks, and
Yeah.
he did something along the lines of speaking the first, like, he's just like you and I, quiet, uh didn't want to go up there and speak and talk about what his passions were, but he felt that people would get the message across regardless of how it was presented. And I think that's so
Hmm.
important, and that's what you did. And I know through practice you're going to be a better speaker, and I'll be your supporter along through your ride. So,
Thanks.
because you're truly amazing, really. But thank you for this time. Before we conclude, I want to ask you a very important question, and that is, what matters to you?
That's a great question. I think what matters to me is, shoot, I think what matters to me is really just finding something that you love to do and just doing it to the fullest and really staying true to who you're called to be, and love yourself in every imperfection, because your imperfections are actually perfections and
Exactly.
powerful.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. I can't believe
Yeah.
you said that, because that's what I think too. Wow.
Hmm.
Truly amazing, Dawn. Oh my gosh. Thank you for this time. I wish you all the best. And I'm going to be looking out for you in track and field somewhere. I'm going to watch you on
Thanks.
TV and
That's the
support
goal.
you, right? And cheer you on, right? Representing Canada or
Yeah.
whatnot. So, thank you once again for this time. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. This is a great conversation. I can't
Yes.
wait to see you just like inspire more people with just these podcasts. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.